Hi, this is Lady Lex UK and this is a Dreams tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you an enemy attack. So what we're going to be seeing here is an attack animation from our player, an attack animation from our enemy. Health is going to be coming off both a player and our enemy. We're going to have a death animation in there, and I've also got a wandering creature brain that I've created for our enemy so that he can wander around and be alive and not just stand there and wait for us to attack him. Right then, let me show you what I've made. So here is my player, and as you can see, he's got a sword in his hand, and in the background you can see there is a monster. He's wandering around all by himself over there. He's taking no notice of us because he can't see us. He's got very bad eyesight. Right, here is our player. He's got a sword. If I press R2, you can stab with that. It's a very simple animation. I don't want you to concentrate on how poor these animations are and more about the logic that I've used. So there's our monster. He's running around and making a lot of noise. Right, okay, so let's get closer to our monster. Let's see what happens if we get close. There we go, he's seen us. He's now moving in. And we can attack him. He can attack us. Oh, we're dying terribly here. Let's stab him a bit more. Oh no, I'm not. There we go. Oh, hey! I've killed him. He's dead. Lost a lot of life in the process, but there we go. I have a dead enemy, which is what we want. Right, okay, let's have a look and see what it is that I built. Right, let's go over to our main character. Here is our player. As you can see, I've put a sword in his hand. I've just scraped into that hand and put the sword there and attached this, snapped this health modifier. Sorry about that, I don't want that showing. Come away. Right, I've snapped a health modifier to it. So here we have our modification amount. This is how much health is going to be removed. Minus 10 points. It's going to do it every time it hits, and it's going to do it depending on impact. So if it impacts with the enemy, then it's going to take minus 10 away from their health. And what it's looking for is anything that's labelled up as foe. So we use an impact and a label. And if I go over to my my monster here, have a look in here, labels, you'll see he's labelled up as foe. So he's going to be affected by that sword attack. And our player is labelled up as friend. So we have friend for our player and foe for our enemy. This way he's not going to attack himself accidentally. If you've got followers and things in your game, this and make them all friend, then obviously you won't get friendly fire. You can't modify the health of a friend. If you set them as foe, then you can. So that's how that will work. Right, let's go into the puppet brain. Alright, I've done very little to this. What I've got is a wire connected to the R2 button to a counter. That counter is then wired to the power on this timeline, and the timeline on end trigger is wired to the reset on the counter. So you can't you can press the R2 button as many times as you like, but it's only ever going to play your animations in full one at a time. So you don't get like half a stab and then a full stab or anything like that. So this is playing the whole thing through before you can, it will do it a second time. That's what that's doing. Here is our timeline. I've got 4 little frames of animation in here. Let me get that closer to the player so you can see. Okay, so that's our first one. He's sort of lifting up. Second one, pulling it back. Pulling it further back. And then forwards. That's all my keyframes are. That's what it's doing. You'd obviously make something a little bit more exciting than that. But that's a nice basic animation for a stabbing. I've got a sword swing sound in there, so you can hear him doing the movement. Do not underestimate the importance of sound effects. You do need sound effects in there to make these things come alive. You need it for impacts. You need it for swings. Otherwise, it doesn't look like you're doing anything. You need to actually feel the impacts. And there is extra things we can do to that, which I might make a tutorial on a bit later on. Right, so there we go. There is our player brain. The only other thing I've added to this is a number displayer, which I've wired to the current health. And I've got that in scene so that it appears over his head. And that will follow him around. So there we go. There's our player. He's done. All the hard work is actually in our enemy. Right. Now, if you made your own enemy puppet, you probably used either a blank puppet or a basic blank puppet. Let's grab a deluxe one and pop it down. And have a look and see what we need to do. Right, so, like we say, we have to set it to be a foe. So we can do that to it. If we go into the puppet logic brain, you'll see there's some extra microchips in here that we don't want. Here is our follow behavior. Now what this does is when another player is possessed in the level, this turns this puppet into a follower. So it will suddenly run after you and then start following you around. We don't want that because we're creating our own follow and attack behavior. So we don't want that, so we just delete that. That goes. Get rid of that. That's gone. Then we go into the controller logic. Here is our controller sensor. This is allowing us to possess the puppet and use the controller to move it around. We're not doing that because he's going to have independent movement, so that goes too. So you're left with just a health manager and a puppet interface, which we do need. And then we once those are gone, then we can start adding to our puppet. Let's scope out. Right, we don't need that anymore. That can go. Right then, let's have a look at our puppet and its puppet logic. Okay, I've got a timeline in here. This is just a blink animation. I did a tutorial on that previously, so I don't need to talk about that again. Here is our controller logic, and this is where I've put all of our microchips. Alright then, I've got, let me show you which ones I've created. I've created this one. This is a detect microchip. This one, which is our random wandering microchip. This one, which is our attack. And this one, which is our number displayer, which is the same as we had in the player puppet. And this one, which is our death animation. So, we'll just close down the attack there. There we go, so you can see the wires. Right, so here is our detect. And there's a lot of things going on here, but the outputs are going to both the random wandering chip and the attack chip. So this is what is, and also there's a wire going into our puppet interface. So let's get our puppet interface up. Whoops, wrong one. There we go. So we're going to need that as well. Right. Let's go into, let's move that over there. Let's move that there. Right. So we can see stuff. Right. Here is our detect chip. It's got 2 trigger zones in it. This one at the top is the big one. This is going to detect whether the player has wandered into our zone of influence. And this is our smaller zone, and this is whether or not they're close enough so that we can attack them. Now, the size of these zones is up to you, and also the size of your enemy and all that sort of thing. So that these are going to be different depending on your game. But this will all be the same for you. Okay, so when you detect the player, I've added an exclusive gate. I've called them both detection because I don't want this and this to run at the same time. I either want him to do the following and run towards you, or I want him to attack. I don't want him to get confused and try to do both at the same time. So that's why I've got some exclusive gates in here. So what this does is I've wired this into the gate input, and the active wire is then what activates everything. And the first wire that you can see here, this is going into our puppet interface here, and it's going into this page, which is the 3 gears, and it's wired into the follow. So this is now going to activate the follow mechanism that is built into these puppets, and it's looking for the follow me tag. Follow me tag is inside all of these puppets, but we deleted it. If you remember, we deleted it in the it was in that pink thing. There it is, follow me tag. There's the follow me tag. We deleted it in our enemy one earlier on, but it's still in our player, so we're going to be looking for that. We're going to look to find the follow me tag, and he's going to follow until he gets to 0.3 meters, and then he's just going to stand there, and he's going to do his attack animation like that time. So there we go. So that's going to chase down our player. I've also linked this to this keyframe. What this keyframe? I've closed that down. I should have kept it open. This is also linked to this keyframe. This keyframe is changing our run speed from 0 to 2.9 meters a second. So normally he'll just walk around at that walk speed, but when this keyframe is active, he's actually running at 2.9 meters a second. So once he's spotted you, he's going to start running towards you at that increased speed. When your player is not in that trigger zone, so there's the not gate, that's going to power on our random wandering brain. We'll look at that in a minute. Right, let's have a look at this trigger zone. This trigger zone is exactly the same as the one above. So this detection zone is set to priority 1, and this one is set to priority 2. Now, normally when you think something is priority 1, that's the highest priority, and priority 2 is the lower. That's not how it works in Dreams. It's the other way around. So the higher the number, the more important it is. So in this circumstance, the attack is more important than the follow, and that's why I've got these exclusive gates. But this exclusive gate, what this does is it is wired into a counter in our attack brain. That sets the attack off. So we're ready to attack when you're in that detect zone. When we're not in the detect zone, it resets that counter. So attack, do not attack. That's what that one is doing. Okay, so let's have a look at our random wandering brain. So we now know that if the enemy does not detect the player, he's going to randomly wander around. So what I've got here is I've got a randomizer, and that's being run off of this timer. This timer is set to 0.5 seconds. It can be set to anything you like, but I've got it set to 0.5 seconds, and it's going to send a pulse to this randomizer, and it's going to choose one of these ports. These ports are then linked to this selector. Now, I did try it with going straight from the randomizer, and it did not work the way I wanted it to. There was some issues, But when I put the selector in, that seemed to have solved all the issues I had with the randomizer. So that's why I've got the 2. It might look like it's extra, but for some reason this works better than just straight from the randomizer. Okay, so I've got, when the timer is finished, so it's going to randomize, it's going to choose one of these options. So our active port is linked into the active port of our selector. And all of these wires are wired into our selector one at a time. So A goes to A, B goes to B, C goes to C, etc., etc. And these are our selections. So we can walk, run, turn, and pause. That's our 4 options. That's what he's going to do randomly. So let's have a look at the top ones. The first one is our walk. So this is a timer, and this is a 3-second timer. So the walk is going to happen for 3 seconds. When I've finished doing the timer, this is wired all the way back to this timer, which is going to reset, which is then going to send another pulse. So it's going to choose something else. Right. Now this A is, so it's linked to that timer. It's also linked to the walk, which is in our Puppet interface, which is in our controller logic. And there it is there. So it's on that first page. We open up. There we go. Go forwards. So he's going to walk forwards for 3 seconds. Then we've got B. That's also linked into the go forwards. But this time it's going to be run. It's going to be 1 second instead of the 3. And this is also wired to that keyframe for run in there. So that's the 3 wires for B. C, this is our turn. I'm going to turn for 1.2 seconds. All of these numbers, all of these timers are entirely up to you how long you want them to do each thing. When he turns, we're also linked to this rotator. The rotator is set like that. It's just going to rotate, and I've got it set to the rotation speed of 78.2. You can, or obviously you can change that to whatever you want, and that's linked to the rotator speed. So normally the rotator speed is 0, and it will go to 78.2. So there's our rotator. So it's linked to our rotator there. So what you would do is you take your rotator, pop it down like this. You change that to speed you want, like that. And then we're wiring up to the speed. So normally it's 0, see? Until it's wired on, and then it's like that. So that's all you do. Right, that's our turning. Now you could also link this to the Puppet interface so that he's moving forwards as well. So if I'll try that. We'll link it also to go forwards. So now he's walking and turning at the same time. Now he's pausing. Get him out of the way of him because I don't want to. It's pausing. There we go. So you could link forward movement to the turn. There is a problem with that. It's like he's stuck on that tree. But he's turning. He should get to a point where he'll just turn out of being connected to that tree, and then he should be able to walk forwards. Or was he stuck? There is always that problem. Oh no, he's not stuck. There he goes. There we are. He's got himself out of it. So we're good. So that's something you can do. You need to play about with that, and you can get him to walk at different speeds. Like I say, with a keyframe, like you saw with the run animation. You can change the walk animation so you can walk slower, faster. You can add as many of these as you like. You've got up to 10 selections. So there's that. Then you've got D. This is just a pause. So I've got a 2.6 seconds where he's just standing around doing absolutely nothing. And as you can see, all of these timer finished outputs are all wired into resetting this timer so that it will select a new random choice. So there's our random wandering microchip, and that's that sorted. That is run when they're not detected, and obviously it turns itself off when you are detected, so it no longer wanders about. Right, here's our attack. This was run, if you remember rightly, from inside that detect zone. So when you're in the correct place, it's going to turn on our counter. Now this is going to this counter is saying yes, we're attacking now. Let's rename that. So this is our attack, saying we're now attacking. This is going to create a signal generator, which is going to activate our attack. Now, the reason I've had to do this is because a constant signal to this right arm doesn't work to continually attack. You need a signal to be constantly sent so that it will attack. So this is why I've got a signal generator. So we've got an attack counter saying yes, attack now, and that will activate this signal generator that I've got set to 0.7 seconds. Is going to send a pulse, and that signal is then going to our attack. So he's going to continually attack until such times as he's no longer in the zone, and that's going to reset this counter. That will turn off the signal generator and he'll no longer attack. So that's why that is doing what it's doing. Right, so that's our attack and our random moves. Let's have a look at the death. Oh, I didn't show you the attack timeline, did I? That's stupid. Let's look at the attack. Haha, there's an awful lot in there. That was silly. Right, okay. Right. So we've got our attack animation. This is the movement of the arm. And here I've got a sound effect of a face punch. I've got a health modifier, I've got a not gate, and I've got a swinging sound effect. So what I've got here is the health modifier, and it's very similar to what we had in the sword. Now, if my character had a sword, I would do it exactly the same way as I did it with the player, and have the health modifier in the sword, so when it impacted, etc. But I've created a character with very stubby arms, and he doesn't actually impact with the player, but we want the effect that he's actually attacking. So I've got a zone, and this zone is here. It's the same as the attack zone. And so it's looking for the player to be in the zone, and it's going to do -10 every time we get to the end of this timeline. So it's going to swing, and it's going to cause damage to our player, because we're looking for a label of friend this time. So before it was foe, and now we're looking for friend. There we go, very simple. There's our health modifier. Right, if our look at the outputs. Right, if we are modifying, then we are going to have this sound effect, the face punch, because we've impacted with our player. But if we are not modifying and we do the swing, so the player is not in the danger zone, then we're just going to have a swinging sound. So you'll just make a swing sound and you won't get that impact. You could probably do both. So a swing and a punch, but I think the punch has got that'll do. So we've got a swing or a punch sound. And that's our attack animation, and that's what's damaging our player. Can't believe I nearly didn't show you that. That would have been a disaster. Right, okay, death animation. Here's our animation of our player falling backwards. There we go, it's falling backwards. There's the keyframes for that. There we go, his legs in the air, etc. This is destroying our monster, and this is emitting. Is it going to emit an explosion? Let me just get back to the beginning. We can see it better. This is going to emit an explosion effect. I've placed an explosion effect from Medium Molecule. There it is there. And that's going to emit on our... Let me just put it... There we go. That's going to emit onto our monster as he dies. So you get that explosion effect and then he'll be destroyed. So there we go. There's a death animation. Obviously, you would make a nicer job of the death animation than I've done there. There's all sorts of things that you can do. And that's linked to the no health wire. So it's wired to no health into the power. So that's when that will activate. And there we go. And you can also put other things on here. So if you wanted, you could have a score for killing this enemy. So you would put that in here as well. So as they die, it would you'd have a score modifier here, or the way I prefer to do it, you would have a variable modifier in here, and that variable would then alter the score. So there we go. There is an attack of an enemy with a random wandering, and swords that actually inflict damage. I hope that was useful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.